During the first interview, I had brought up something to the effect of how his relationship was and if there was any reason that Riley would be afraid of him.
And did you tell him about the eye watch, or did you just ask him that?
I just asked him that question.
Okay. And what was his response?
He said there was no reason at all that she would be afraid of him.
That is an important moment in the trial that we're covering in West Virginia. Andrew McCauley is the defendant. He's accused of murdering a 15-year-old girl who was his girlfriend's daughter. And they're asking him, is there any reason why she would be afraid of you or scared of you or fear you? And the defendant saying, no, there's no reason. There's nothing going on. But she is saying something completely different in some messages that she sent to her boyfriend. I mean, this is the words of the victim herself may be the key to this trial. Take a listen. This is a recorded interview. You've got the defendant being recorded by Corporal Fred Edwards asking him about text messages that the interviewer knows about, knows that the victim in this case was scared of the defendant and did not want him in the room. Take a listen.
What if I told you her last text to her boyfriend? We're saying don't talk because she still has the FaceTime one. Andy's in here. I'm afraid.
That's what it said.
What if I told you that?
Honestly, that's crazy.
100%.
Honestly, that's crazy. There's no reason Riley would ever be scared of me. She never was scared of me, ever.
I can put my hand on the Bible and tell you I saw this text today.
Well, I like to see it because I knew Riley ain't scared of me. I know she ain't
Not only that, she said you were in here and she was in her bedroom because the FaceTime was still on.
I was never in her room.
That's not what she's saying.
I don't know. I was never in her room. I don't go in her room. Once in a while, I go in her room, but not hardly ever.
Then why would she say that?
I don't know. Unless she wasn't in her room. She might have been in my room full of clothes at that point.
No, this is way past your 9:30 time frame.
I was downstairs at after 9:30, so.
Andy, I'm not lying to you.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know. I was not in her room, for one. And for two, the kid's not scared of her. There's no reason for her to be scared of me. I've been there in her life for a year and a half.
Andy's in here. I'm afraid. Those are the words of the victim herself. I mean, that is powerful stuff. Let me bring in Court TV crime and justice reporter Joy Lim-Nakrin, who is following all this for us. That's a big moment. What other big highlights from today?
Yeah, well, one of the key witnesses that we heard from today was the colleague of the defendant. His name is Johnny Walter, worked construction with the defendant, and he testified a lot about just the context to all of this, but also what the defendant was doing the day in question. For instance, he testified that he drove the defendant to work that day, that the defendant disappeared, left work for several hours during the day in question, even though normally he didn't do that. And this was inconsistent with what the defendant himself told authorities, which was that he had been at work all day long, never even left work. He also testified as to some of the material that is connected now, we know, according to investigators, with the crime scene. For instance, he said that the defendant picked up some heavy-duty trash bags at the start of work that he said he was going to bring to the job site, and we know that such bags were actually found near the body of the victim at the crime scene. In addition, he said that there was some drywall mud in the bed of the truck that the defendant allegedly drove that day, and we know that drywall mud was found on the body of the victim. So let's go ahead and listen to a clip of testimony from Johnny Walter.
Did you ask Andy if he put any gas in the truck?
I believe Andy told me he put $40 in it while he was gone.
Do you know how many times Andy stopped to get gas?
I think he said he stopped twice. Put 20 in at one time, 20 in another.
Did he tell you where he stopped to get gas?
No.
So when Andy came back, you said you saw him in the front yard?
Yes, I believe it was front yard.
Where was the truck?
Across the street from the house that they were working at.
All right. Did you ever walk up and see that truck?
Yeah, I later did. When I was done at the house I was working at, I walked up there, yes.
And what do you remember about the truck?
I had drywall mud all in the back of it.
The back of the truck bed?
Yes, yes, sir.
Did you see a drywall bucket in the back of the bed?
Yes.
Did that bucket have a lid on or not?
It was tipped over. I believe the lid was loose on it. I can't honestly remember if it was tight or not.
And again, that drywall mud splatter, that's the sort of thing that was found on the body of the victim, specifically her right shoulder and also her right foot, Vinny.
All right, another big day inside that courtroom. I want to bring in the think tank, get some reaction to what happened today in West Virginia. Still with us, Al Wunsch, Ann Bremner, Michael Sterling, and Andy's in here. I'm afraid.
Right.
This is the victim herself texting that to her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
This is, to me, it doesn't get more powerful than the words of the victim herself.
Absolutely, Vinny, you're so right. And the prosecutor, of course, led with that. It's very powerful in his opening statement. Andy's in my room and I'm afraid. That is so chilling. And it's the pictures of her behind him. And then you've got the drywall mud, not only in the bed of his trunk, but on her and the garbage bags. And then the time proximity and then the inconsistencies. But what's ringing in those jurors' ears is exactly what you just said. Andy's in my room and I'm scared. And then we know what happened.
Michael, this is not an easy case for the defense. Most murder cases aren't, because you're not going to bring a case unless you've got some compelling evidence. Here's a combination of the words of the defendant herself, and then we throw in some of this forensic evidence that jurors tend to like, related to the material of the drywall. You start putting these pieces together, it becomes overwhelming at some point.
Yeah, Vinny, I think that's fair. We are often the attorneys for the damned. Criminal defense attorneys are. Your back's against the wall, and the question becomes whether or not the state can prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But I certainly think the words of the victim are very relevant and very powerful. And then obviously the statements of the defendant himself, the multiple inconsistent statements that he made, certainly doesn't help, his defense lawyer in this particular matter. So yeah, this is an uphill battle for the defense attorneys.
Al Wunsch, I've been waiting to say this line, but wait, there's more. Take a listen. Prosecutors called the defendant's own mother to the stand. Let's listen.
Yes, I do remember him telling me that he did go back home to get his drugs because he was almost out. Him and Johnny was doing it together, and he was almost out, and he went home to get the rest of his drugs.
So you had a further conversation with your son where he told you he was almost out of the drugs?
He was almost out.
So would it surprise you if two witnesses before you just testified that there was a gram of cocaine and they used a little bit of it, but there was that left to do a couple more lines?
I don't know if you know anything about cocaine.
I don't, but please fill me in.
But cocaine, you could do a gram of cocaine. You could do a gram of cocaine yourself.
Al, do you think they should have her sworn as an expert witness? I mean, how powerful is this, though? Because the image that a lot of people are getting when you see this defendant for the first time in the courtroom, clean cut. Yes, he's got the mask on. Everyone's wearing a mask, but looks nothing like his mugshot, number one. But now we're getting into his lifestyle a little bit.
Well, it's very hard to discuss drugs with your mom. I've never tried to do it myself, but apparently he did. And, what Michael was saying before with regards to defense counsel, you're in trouble when your opening is beyond a reasonable doubt is the first line you say to the jury. And that, guys, you got to listen to everything. And from the Latin meaning this and from the Latin meaning that, and you have nothing else. The prosecution laid a wonderful story down in an hour and 5 minutes that was just captivating. And when you're the best you can do to counter is just, well, kind of listen to the end of it. And, you got to give us the benefit of the doubt if there's anything here. And that human remains doesn't necessarily mean remains. It may mean, something from your shoe or something from this or that. So this guy's got some serious problems, not to mention the fact that his testimony, like if there was ever an example of why you remain silent, it's this defendant.
Yeah,
Because every time he opened his mouth, he stuck his foot right in, and it was just, and he swallowed both feet, which is not very easy to do, Vin.
Yeah, absolutely. Joy, Liam, Nakrin, what's coming up tomorrow in West Virginia?
Okay, so tomorrow we expect to hear from the officer whose cadaver dog identified or detected, I should say, those human remains in that green Dodge truck that we've heard so much about, which the defendant allegedly drove on the day in question, Vinny.
All right. Thanks so much, Joy.